But what I do know is health and fitness and the decisions we make before we're in the back of the ambulance, before we're in the ER, before we're in the cardiologist's office, and hopefully before you're in one of your facilities are very important.
Right.
And if you have a brand new vehicle and you treat it like shit, you put in improper fuel, you let it sit for years on end without ever using it. When you do use it, you beat the living hell out of it. You put in inadequate oil. You put in the wrong type of oil. You can expect some problems.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, everyone. Meet James.
Hello, everybody.
James Johnson, wild man. He drove 10 hours round trip from Salt Lake City to Boise to be here just to have a conversation with me for you all to see. So, yeah, you know, all 600 of you. But James is our new owner for Salt Lake City. And when I first met James, within the first 5 minutes, I was like, I need to work with this guy. Yeah. So James is one of us. Great attitude, lots of experience in business, good kind of philosophy on life. I wanted to bring him on the podcast today just to have him meet you all and to have you meet him. So, James, welcome, man.
Appreciate you having me.
What in the hell prompted you to buy a starting strength gym? I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I am too. At least so far.
Well, yeah, you know, you're not angry yet because you've only just started. But yeah, give us some of the background on what led you to this decision.
Well, the short of it is it works. Mm-hmm. So it's been extremely beneficial to me. So I want to spread that, to provide the opportunity to other people.
Yep.
That's kind of the foundation of it. I'm currently in healthcare, and I run nursing homes. Nursing homes provide care for people who have already been sick. I got into that business hoping to have a stronger impact than I have been able to have, just based on how our health system works.
Yep.
And seeing how people come in and seeing the benefits that training, particularly strength training, can give to people, was real attractive to me. And I would like to help people not have to go into nursing homes.
Right.
To be able to live a higher quality of life, to be able to enjoy their grandkids, their hobbies, and not be stuck somewhere where they're going to live out their days without capacity to do the things that they love.
Yep. Yeah, nursing home can be kind of a depressing place. Are you guys an assisted living facility?
No, we're what's called a skilled nursing facility.
Okay.
So we provide both long-term care and short-term rehabilitation care. Say, for example, someone breaks a hip, has a knee replacement, they can come to our facility where they'll get physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then hopefully get to a place where they go back home.
What percentage of people do you think would not need to be in there had they gone through the process of getting stronger? That's probably a tough question to answer, but I'm curious if you thought about that.
I don't have the stats on that. My best guess would be you could reduce the occupancy by about 25%, I would say.
Yeah. And I wonder what that would look like if we're not just referring to frailty and mobility, but if we're also talking about the diseases that present based on living a sedentary life. Right. Because you know this, and some of the people that have been listening know as well, but I just became an EMT, and I did this just because my faith in the healthcare system and our institutions is at an all-time low.
Right.
And in general, I don't like, so if the cost of something is unacceptable, if the downside of something is unacceptable when it comes to risk assessment, then it's worth putting some serious measures into mitigating that downside, right?
Right.
And so the way I look at it is, if there's a medical emergency, because this simple mechanical system, it's not that simple, but this mechanical electrical system that we operate in
Right.
has a few basic needs, like the ABCs, right? Airway, breathing, circulation.
Right.
If one of those things gets stopped for more than a short length of time, that might be game over for you, and there's no coming back from that.
Right.
And so my thinking is, how do you mitigate as many of those issues as possible on your own? Because, you could just hope that whenever something happens, you can call the authorities. A competent person will be over just in the nick of time, and everything will be okay. But what if that's not the case? So that was the motivating factor for me for getting into to becoming an EMT. The reason I bring up the story is, when I finished my schooling, we had to do some practical ride-along type stuff.
Oh, okay.
And we visited various nursing homes and obviously different medical facilities, because I am working for a private transport company, like twice a month just to get experience. And the thing that struck me is, not only are these people in a really bad spot, just sad, lonely, but on top of that, they're also in a system that doesn't really care about them, because it can't, because that's just the nature of being in a system. Some of the individuals might, right? But the overall quality and care that's being provided in our medical system, I feel like is an all-time low. It's either that, or I'm just more aware of it than I have been in the past. However, I think there are arguments there are supporting arguments in favor of my position, in that, that all these people have been laid off. All the shit people had to go through COVID caused a lot of good people to quit. All the policies that these hospitals have adopted and the CDC has adopted caused a lot of good people to quit. Vaccine mandates, all this stuff, right? So we're in a bad spot when it comes to healthcare. And I've mentioned your name a couple times, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you on the podcast was, what's your take on all this? What is actually, I'm the outsider looking in.
Right.
I get a little bit of a peek into the way the sausage is made as an EMT, and I don't like what I see, by the way. This is scary to have $15 an hour employees who may or may not give a shit about you or their domain. A lot of them do, by the way, so I don't want to be unfair.
Right. Yeah.
Showing up to save your ass. What's your take on, you mentioned in your introduction that you've not been able to care for people in the way that you'd hoped. Can you expand upon that? What's the situation in healthcare, and why is it that you can't do the thing that you want to be doing, which is caring for other people that need it?
Yeah, that's a lot to unwrap. First of all, the decline, I think, recently can be associated with the exodus of people from healthcare. The last few years, we've seen a complete disproportionate number of people leave without people coming in to replace those. We have amazing people in healthcare. The nurses, the nurses' assistants, there are a lot of amazing people who are dedicated regardless of the system. They come in every day and they care about people and they care for people. And that's really what's holding our system together, is those people. Because the system itself is not great.
Is rotten from the core. And sincere thanks to those of you that work in the field, working selflessly in an effort to improve people's outcomes, because you care about another human being and how their life unfolds based on the quality of care that you provide. So thank you for that.
Yeah. If you're involved in healthcare, you see a system and you get discouraged. You see the people and you get encouraged, because people are sacrificing where they could make more money doing something easier. They're there and they're helping people, and they're putting, during COVID, people come and felt like they were putting their own health at risk to be there. And so there's some amazing people.
Hell yeah.
That being said, the system is out of whack. It's bureaucrats who create the policies. You have, you can look at the people you're trying to help as a bell curve. You have the 1% in the middle that you're actually treating the way they're supposed to be treated. You got the people on the right being overtreated, the people on the left undertreated. So our system doesn't allow for individual care. It's this is what you get. And regardless if it's helping, if we can give this person a little more, they might be able to recover and be able to go home and enjoy life. But we can't take from the person who doesn't need as much and give it here. So our system doesn't allow for real individual care.
That's an interesting way to put it. Never thought about it like that. You are a member of a category or of a group, and you're treated accordingly.
Correct.
And I believe that's primarily, I don't want to jump ahead, I'm sure you're getting here, but I believe that's primarily because you're not the one paying for the services. So you're actually not the customer, you're the product.
Correct.
And that changes incentives in really nasty ways. And I think that's pretty clear because the medical professionals that I talk to articulate it as follows. There is what's right for the patient, what's right for the bottom line, and what is right regulatorily. And typically the patient is last in those in that triad, because if you screw up the regulatory side, you might lose your ability to practice. If you screw up the finance side, you might lose your ability to practice. So I don't blame anybody for things being this way. It's just a feature, or a bug rather, of our system. And I believe that the root cause of that is too much government interference, which has led to a third-party payer system, which has led to a slew of perverse incentives that are not aligned to making sure people are as healthy and capable as possible.
Yep. I would agree 100%. 100%.
All right, podcast over,
There we
guys.
go.
Good talking to you.
Now we just have to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging from the doctors on. Again, they're amazing doctors who are committed, and you have doctors who go to school and they come out with $750,000 in debt just getting through school, and now if they don't adhere to the rules and regulations, then they're in trouble, right? Then all that is for naught.
Yep.
Which has kind of allowed pharmaceuticals to take a much bigger role in healthcare than I personally believe they should, because they influence everything from schools and producing the educational material. The doctors learn. Doctors aren't learning, and this is common knowledge, doctors aren't learning nutrition. They're not learning a lot about preventative care. How many doctors really know about strength training?
A lot of people know it's good. The CDC recommends it. Yeah. When you ask a doctor, okay, so how do I get stronger?
Right.
They're either not going to know, and those are the smart ones that say they don't know, or they're going to tell you something that they've made up, or they think they have an impression of, not an understanding of, which is even more dangerous than just being quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that they have a big problem in our country. And let me say this: we have some of the best in the world.
Oh yeah.
If I had to have, I just had shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. That upper level, surgeons, that all is amazing here in the States. We're advanced. We have access to great doctors. My comments are kind of specifically towards the elderly and how we're, general practitioners and how our general health is being taken care of. When it comes to specialists, we have amazing people. But then in our system, and rightfully so, they're really incentivized. The specialists tend to do a lot better than a general practitioner.
Yep.
So,
and I like the surgeons, because the surgeons typically think and operate like engineers, and whether or not your visit to the surgeon was successful. On the other hand, your visit to your cardiologist or your GP or your urologist, the standard of practice in this country may not align with what is the best thing for the patient. And that's a function of the system, not of the practitioner. And the practitioner probably doesn't know any better. Did you catch the Kendrick podcast that Ripito did?
For the
cholesterol stuff. Yeah. I mean, not to say you listen to one podcast or read a couple of books and then all of a sudden that's gospel, but at the same time, there are some pretty interesting arguments in there.
Absolutely.
That are extremely contrary to the status quo and accepted common knowledge. And years back, when I had more faith in institutions, I might have been more dismissive of claims like that because I believed in the rigor that went into making the decisions that got us to the position that we're in as a society. And then as I see more of how the sausage is made, I realize that it's not about rigor. It's about image, it's about power, and it's about money. And that's how policies are made. And that's why this overregulated industry just needs a hard reset as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And the problem is we've had regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation. Some of those regulations contradict each other. Mm-hmm. And nobody has set out to redo the system and say, hey, if we were starting today, how would we fix this? Mm-hmm. And that's because there's a lot of money in it today. And the people that are invested in it or making that money today have no desire to change the system.
They'd make less money.
It's moving in a direction that they like. Mm-hmm. And in particularly pharmaceuticals have just an enormous amount of influence.
Going back to the Kendrick podcast with Rip, what were your thoughts on, I think this is something that you're very close to. What were your thoughts on the polypharmacy discussion, where you've got elderly patients on 7 different drugs? Another thought experiment, another way to answer this question would be, what would happen? So similar to the strength training question, what would happen if you took every single resident off of all their meds? Now, granted, you'd get a lot of negative fallout. Don't get me wrong. But what percentage of them might be better is the thing I'm worried about.
Yeah. Well, we see that all the time. We see people who, because they have their general practitioner who's prescribed them medications, and I'm not anti-medication. I think there's a place for it, and the world has been significantly benefited by medications. We've had diseases that we don't have to worry about anymore because of that. So, but I think there is an overuse. Of it, and I think that overuse is swinging the pendulum to cause harm for a lot of people.
Well, a medication is a solution to a problem, and first, for there to be a solution to a problem, there needs to be a well-defined solution, and then second, for there to be a solution to a problem, there needs to be an objective, repeatable process for confirming that solution actually solves that problem. And that is supposed to be what the process of science is.
Right, the scientific method, yeah.
And that is not the way things are done, but it's the way things are sold. And that's deeply concerning to me. The point that Rip and Kendrick alluded to on the podcast was, and we'll link to the audio version in the show notes, was basically that not only have you never tested, for example, the implications of using a statin with let's say a 50+ woman, like you've never actually run the clinical trial to determine if this gives you the outcomes that you want. It's just, we've seen correlative benefit. Logically, it makes sense based on the mechanisms of action of the drug.
Right.
So therefore, it's a standard practice to prescribe that drug.
Right.
And it's one of the most prescribed drugs in the country.
In the world, for that matter, I believe. Yeah.
I need a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
If you want my mom to take a drug every day for the rest of her life, I need more than a hypothesis.
Well, here's where the system breaks down, because the doctor, that's standard practice, right? As you mentioned, the doctor almost has to prescribe it under certain conditions.
Yep.
Because if not, he can be held liable for not prescribing it. But he'll never be held liable for prescribing it. So now he's kind of stuck.
Yep.
And that's where the system's breaking down.
Agreed.
Where the doctor, although he may or may not think it's for that individual, it's appropriate for that individual, he almost has to prescribe it based on the recommendations. And it's not, I think it was 2016, 2017 where they lowered the high blood pressure requirements.
Oh, sure,
okay?
sure. The range.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be 100 over 40 before you know it.
yeah,
At the max.
Well, and we saw there are tons of people. Then all of a sudden, from today to tomorrow, in one day, all of a sudden, they're prescribed. And again, that once that guideline is set, it's very difficult for a doctor not to prescribe it. I went to the doctor, and this is just before I discovered starting strength, and it's one of the things that really attracted me because I happened to see Rip talking about stupid things doctors say.
Yep.
And
we'll link to that one too. By the way, that's a good one.
I was going to the doctor just for a checkup. I was on my way to the gym. I drank a pre-workout before going in. They took my blood pressure. It was high. So the doctor comes in first of all, and I'm not slim by any stretch, but I'm not obese. The doctor comes in and says your BMI is too high and your blood pressure is too high. And I said, well, like my BMI, I just measured. I'm 19% body fat, so I'm not really worried about my BMI. It shouldn't be an issue.
Good for you.
19%.
But you're at 50. How old are you?
55.
55 years old, 90% body fat and muscular. Well done.
So,
but you're sick.
But I'm exactly. And I had specifically chosen this doctor because he was over the University of Nevada, Reno athletic program during his training. So I thought, okay, this is somebody that's going to understand athletes, and he had if this then that, if this then that, does irrespective of who he's talking to.
Yeah, he's an algorithm.
Or what position. And so he tells me, well, your blood pressure's high, I'm going to give you blood pressure medicine. I said, I shouldn't have done it, but I took a pre-workout when I came in, so I expect my blood pressure to be a little high. And I just finished a commute. So
and I've been walking around, and I've been on my phone, and you were talking to me when you were taking my blood pressure, and I'm annoyed because of this phone call I just got off work. It's okay that I'm 142 over 91. It's okay. You don't actually need to give me a drug for this. And one data point.
Exactly.
One data point.
That's the thing. It's like I'm trying to explain to him I'm force feeding him my circumstances, questions that I feel like he should be asking me, like to understand. Okay, who is this? He and I have never met. This is my first time in the office, and so I'm force feeding him. This is my lifestyle. This is my thing. And we talked a little bit about protein, and he said, "Well, in the American diet, you get enough protein." I'm like, I don't know what American diet you're talking about, but
maybe you thought you said highly processed foods.
But anyway, so we get to the end, and I said, look, I'm not going to take the medication. I don't need it. I know typically my blood pressure is not high. And instead of saying, okay, well, he wanted me to come in for a blood test, which is fine. But instead of saying, okay, we'll measure it again when you come back for your blood test and see where we're at. And I get that. I appreciate trying to get a few data points, but he said his comment was, well, I'm sending in the order because I'm obligated to prescribe this to you. And I said, I won't even go pick it up because I don't need it. He said, well, I have to do it. So I never went back to him. I never went and saw that doctor again. But that's just an example of how the system is kind of forcing the hands of doctors to, if this, then that.
It's part that, and it's part of lack of thinking. Because and I don't blame the guy, but if it were you, if it were me, if it were someone that doesn't have any experience in this domain, the first question you'd ask is there anything that'd be elevating your blood pressure right now?
Yeah.
Right?
And I fed him that information.
Sure.
He didn't ask.
Sure.
So
instead of
knowing that myself, and I'm
X number, okay, this is the course of action.
But the fact that I had to have a conversation with him about BMI and then about blood pressure, and it was discouraging. Oh. And I'm thinking, how many people are there that don't have either the personality or the knowledge to really fight? Because we hold doctors in high esteem as
ask your doctor.
Yeah, and so. Most people probably would have left there and gone and picked up their medication and started taking their blood pressure.
Then you're on lisinopril for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and no discussion of what the downsides to the medication were.
Including depleting your zinc stores.
Yeah.
Zinc's pretty important. Do you know what the function of zinc is? What's the downside of not having adequate zinc? Am I supplementing with zinc now?
Yeah.
How come none of these things are discussed?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's quite infuriating for me. And I think you're right. I think it is partially the fact that it's like, okay, look, basically these guys are agents of the state. You go to a state institution to get certified, to confirm that you've gone through the process that they've dictated, and they force feed you information.
And the American Medical Association limits the number of medical schools, and that's artificially low.
And even the dumbest people in the comments section won't be able to dispute that shit is broken and backwards in our medical system, the stuff that you're being taught in medical school. So then you're put into an institutional healthcare practice, which is regulated by the federal government. And at the same time, you've taken out a loan. And it's not just any kind of loan. It might be a special type of loan, a special type of student loan that you can never get out of, not even if you file for bankruptcy. So not only are you an agent of the state, but they have got you by the balls. So what is your incentive to push back against any of this stuff? Well, there's zero incentive to push back, and all the incentives are in favor of you towing the line, especially since the media is in lockstep with the narrative, and this isn't just about COVID, and will reinforce the science, that word again being weaponized to use against people that don't actually know what the scientific process is. And this is scientism, right? It's weaponizing the scientific method to go after people that just simply need the endorsement of an authority to make a decision. So it's just, I think that's the root cause of most of our problems. It's like overly regulated, and then somebody else starts paying for it, which just slowly deteriorates the whole thing. Right. And you know as well as I do that Jesus, when I went to EMT school, they're trying to just systematize the whole thing, where it's like it is start here, then do that, then do that, then do that. There's no like stop and evaluate and think and consider. And it's taking the intellectual rigor out of care. And it's taking the care out of care too, because it's kind of dehumanizing when you do that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They talk about individual care and humanizing care, but we're doing the opposite. Right. And the problem is you can't go out of that once those are established. And this is where, again, I work with amazing doctors. We have people that are really concerned, but once you establish those patterns and you take the critical thinking out and say, if this and that, then you have to follow those, or you risk losing your license. You risk being sued. And you got to put food on the table. Because they'll take 10 doctors and say, what would you do? I would have prescribed this, and this is the one guy that didn't. Okay, you're negligent. You lose. Yeah, exactly.
Criminally negligent.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's challenging, and I don't want to overdo it. I think anybody who's participated in the system knows that there's challenges. And again, on the specialty side, it's great. My surgeon for my shoulder, amazing, and it's outcome driven, right? Yeah. Yep. There's an objective, and if that doctor does not get the right outcomes, he's not going to have any patients.
That's right. Because you can't deny the results. Right. But you can argue with, well, how effective has this cardiologist been at helping people avoid heart attacks? Right. No, but you can't. He can't answer that question. You can't answer that question. Right. It's all religion. It's all just based on belief. Yeah. And that is a good sentiment, and that's one of the reasons why I like you, man, because you're positive. So the point of this is not just to bitch and complain. The point of this is to do what I said earlier, which is to highlight a problem. Right. What's the solution to the problem? I don't know. Is the system beyond repair and parallel institutions need to be set up while the old institutions wither and die? That's outside of my pay grade. I don't know. But what I do know is health and fitness in the decisions we make before we're in the back of the ambulance, before we're in the ER, before we're in the cardiologist's office, and hopefully before you're in one of your facilities are very important. Right. And if you have a brand new vehicle and you treat it like shit, you put in improper fuel, you let it sit for years on end without ever using it. When you do use it, you beat the living hell out of it. You put in inadequate oil. You put in the wrong type of oil. You can expect some problems. Yeah. Most people don't think about their bodies in that way because we're so resilient. Right. And something that might be interesting to you, I've mentioned to you that I have Crohn's, and I actually view that as a good thing. I was talking to my coach, Will Morris, about this the other day, and he was we're talking about the progress I've made, and it's been awesome. And the topic of Crohn's came up, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm actually glad I have Crohn's, because I look at it as an early warning system. With Crohn's disease, if I fuck up in my lifestyle, if my nutrition isn't dialed in, my sleep isn't dialed in, my training isn't dialed in, my stress isn't dialed in, I know about it right away.
Yeah.
And if I let that slip, I will be miserable. I will be miserable to be around, and I will not feel good, and I'll be ineffective. So what does that prompt me to do? That prompts me to be on the straight and narrow with my lifestyle. Not everybody has that privilege.
No, it's like the change lane alarm in the car.
Yeah.
Once you drift, it starts ringing. And
give me an early warning. Yep. That's right. That's right. Because we have a pretty young audience. We have a big audience of all ages, but our YouTube in particular is a lot of young men, and you're full of testosterone and ambition when you're a young man, but you're not so much thinking about like, am I going to be happy I made this decision when I'm 35?
No, never came across my mind.
So our solution to the problem, and that I agree, by the way, my joints can certainly attest to that fact. Our solution to the problem is not to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved with regulation or healthcare, all these other things. No. What I do want to do, though, is help people live happier, more productive, healthier lives. And the most powerful tool that I've discovered for that is strength training with a barbell. It's just a profound, high dose of positive stress when programmed correctly. Yeah. And as you and I both know, if you don't stress the body, it deteriorates into a lump of shit.
Same with the mind. You don't stress the mind, it turns into a lump of crap too.
Yeah, and then a lot of those guys end up in homes.
Yeah,
and they're a mess, and they can't walk around, and it can be a sad thing. So that's my take on it. What's your take on it?
Me too. I'm not here to trash on the system, just to highlight the fact that it's not a system that we can count on to give us the best care if we get ourselves into a situation where we need it. We have to take charge of our own care, and we have to take ownership of our own care, and that's what drew me to Starting Strength. I participated in athletics, basketball particularly, up through junior college, and then went to work, got out of shape. So my getting back into fitness is kind of a sad but funny story. So we're sitting there, and I'm in this facility, and we're a group of people. We're talking about sports, and one of the nurses looked at me and said, "You look like you watch sports. You don't play sports." Right to my heart. But
I've just taken some training for how to communicate with patients as part of this ambulance company. You're not supposed to say stuff like that.
No. And everybody looked at her like, "I can't believe you said that."
She was like, "Oh shit, me neither."
No. But I prefer. I don't have a problem with truth. Sometimes it does hurt.
Yep.
But I laughed, and I went home that night, and I looked, and I'm like, "She's right.
Yeah,
I do look like I watch sports. I don't play sports." At the end, I had ballooned up to about 240, most I've ever weighed.
At what height?
I used to be 5'10". I'm probably 5'9" now.
It does. Yep, that happens. Yep.
There's a lot of things I'd like to hang on to that I can't. But yeah, so 5'9", 340. So I got my
240.
240. Yes, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
240.
340 would be a big problem.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah. So I took my junior college program back to prove to her that I did play sports, and then I started getting in shape.
Nice.
And it started with just walking and doing some weights in my garage. And from there, I moved on to the gym and doing machines. From there, hammer kind of machines, and then
hammer strength stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And then moving on to barbells. But it was that experience. This was when I was 49. So I'm like, okay, I'm turning 50. I've just been told I look like I don't play sports. I got to get back in shape. So that's kind of what propelled me into this. And then I discovered Starting Strength probably about a year and a half ago. And I'm glad I did when I did, because the 3 years prior to that experience, I knew right away that it was right. I had tried the high rep.
You've done what we all do.
Yeah. I you know,
The bodybuilding template.
yeah,
Sure.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You know, go online and look and okay, what is there? What is everybody doing? Just mimic that. And
Wait a minute. Another example of the conventional wisdom not being correct. What do you know? We're noticing a theme here.
There's a couple of those things, yes. So I did that, and then, you know, went to higher, you know, I wanted to get strong. I wasn't interested in being a bodybuilder, but I was interested in having the strength to perform. And I just knew intuitively that strength was important.
Yep.
Right. Because I felt that I had gotten weaker as I got older. And so when I stumbled across starting strength, it immediately made sense.
How did you stumble across it, by the way?
YouTube.
Yeah.
Just searching for information on lifting, and I really wanted to get into barbell training, but I also knew I had tried on my own to do some. I didn't even try squatting because I knew I would hurt myself. I tried deadlifting and kept hurting myself. You know, you get the weight, you start moving the weight up, and then you tweak something, and then you can't do it for a while. And I was kind of on that merry-go-round. So I got to be afraid to do it. Yeah, so because I kind of would tweak, and so I wanted to get a coach, and I was at a gym. I had a coach teach me, but it wasn't. We used the hex bar.
They didn't know much better than you did.
No.
Yeah.
No. So.
Which is standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is standard.
That's not everybody goes for the cute stuff, the battle ropes and that kind of stuff.
Yep. And the provider, just like the previous example, is inside a system that has a set of beliefs that is attempting to deliver that to you in the best way that they know how, and they probably have good intentions, and some of them are pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are not very good, and worse, might be net negative. Now, granted, I think that's rare. I think in general, just so everyone's kind of clear on my position on this, when someone tells me they're running or doing Pilates or doing yoga or whatever, it's not like I'm critical or judgmental. I think that's great.
Right.
I think that's great. I think anything you're doing other than sitting on the couch, and hey, if you want to sit on the couch, knock yourself out. It's your life, you know. Just be aware of the consequences.
Right.
I think that's great. I just think that there are better and worse ways of doing things, and I think when it comes to optimizing the human machine, making it as strong as possible in a systematic, safe way is probably the best bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Yeah. All that stuff is any movement, any fitness is going to have a net positive.
Yep.
Unless you completely overdo it, but it will have a net positive. It's like you say, it's how you're going to get your best bang for the buck. And I don't think there's a better way to enhance your physical ability than through the starting strength method. Because when you look for effort per minute, you can't beat it. And when you look at the progress, you know, I went through, you know, overtraining and just not being able to progress and can't figure it out. And with starting strength, you have a system that just walks you through it. Now there's not a lot of glamour.
Yep.
There's not a lot of that. You're not learning something. You're not learning a new trick every day.
It's not that exciting.
No, yeah. But it is exciting though, because you see the progress.
Sure.
The progress is what's exciting.
But not in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't, if you're excited about what is my trainer going to have me do today, what new trick am I going to perform today, that's different than I'm excited because now I'm 5 pounds higher. I'm 10 pounds higher. I started at 135 and now I'm up to 185. I can't wait to hit 200, 225. And that's exciting. To me, that's exciting. To me, that's fun. And that's what keeps me going. But
progress
it's a different kind of excitement than a lot of people are used to.
I have a thought on this. I believe, well, I think this is more than a belief. I think this is demonstrable. You know, it's like with little kids. You can test for intelligence to see how long they're willing to accept delayed gratification. And it's an interesting test, isn't it? It's like, okay, so you can have one piece of candy now, depending on the age, the duration changes. So, or you can have 2 pieces in 5 minutes. Which do you want? You know?
Yeah.
So the short-term here and now mentality, which I think is really not good at an individual level, community level, or societal level.
I would agree. Yeah,
is perfect for the fashion over function entertainment-based exercise facilities that are littered across the country. But if instead you get satisfaction from having a specific definable goal, having a plan to achieve that goal, and then feeling good every time you cross a new milestone while in pursuit of that plan, that's a whole nother level of satisfaction. It's kind of like the happiness versus fulfillment conversation, which we were having at lunch. I took James to St. Lawrence Gridiron here in Boise. If you ever hear, come on down downtown. They kick ass.
Can't
man.
miss.
I had a Rip would love this, man. I had a 4 patty brisket cheeseburger.
that brisket burger was off the charts.
Kicked
Off
ass.
the charts.
Yeah.
It's worth the drive. Worth the drive.
Worth the drive. Thanks again for
Conversation
coming out, by the way.
and the food. Yeah, it was worth it.
Hell yeah. And what I appreciate about James is I kind of like the old school thing. You know, I grew up in business in Asia, and Asia things are old school. The legal system is not really there to support you if you need it. So if you're going down to sit down with the head of a bank or the head of a telco, the first meeting doesn't have anything to do with business.
Nope.
You're just you worked in Japan. Your wife's Japanese. You're sitting down and you're having tea and you're getting to know the person, getting to know how they think. And then it's all about the relationship, isn't it?
Right.
And then once you know and trust the person, the legal agreement's kind of irrelevant because if things go south, there's not much you can do anyways. Then you can do business together. So I appreciate the fact that you've come up twice now. I mean, the first time you came up just to say hello, and I was like, "Is for real?" I just popped into the gym. I had like 30 minutes. I was like, "Great, man!" But that's the kind of commitment, the kind of attitude, the kind of culture. It's what we're trying to build here. So I appreciate it.
Well, that's the other part. There's a starting strength system which is phenomenal and effective every time it's used, and then there's the culture that is also attractive. So getting back to why I'm doing this, it's the people. I want to work with good people who want to help people. Mm-hmm. And want to work together and have fun doing it.
Yeah, man.
And so, to me, it was important to drive up. I knew Luke was in town because I had spoken to him.
Yep.
I thought, okay, if both you guys were going to be here, we'd never met face to face. So for me, it was well worth the drive because it solidified in me that I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Awesome. And sitting down and saying, okay, these are guys that I really want to work with.
Oh yeah.
Not just because we have a common goal and what we're trying to prove, but because I appreciate who they are.
Yep.
And just want to associate with them irrespective of the business.
Yep.
And so when you can get in that kind of an environment, which is
it's rare,
really hard to find.
Yeah, it's rare.
Really hard to find, where bureaucracy doesn't take over and people are serving the bureaucracy and not the people or not their coworkers.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a huge part too of why I was attracted to Starting Strength.
For the members that are watching, for the coaches, for the owners, if you ever, and for you, if as an owner, if you ever hear or see anyone in one of the gyms say that this should be done, whether it's lifting related or process or policy related, because this is the way it's supposed to be done, or this is the way it's always been done, and no further explanation can be had, we failed.
Yeah.
If that ever happens, please tell me because I need to rectify that. And by the way, if you are, like I said, this episode is going to come out in a few months because of scheduling, but this is probably still going to be relevant. Let's say if this comes out in March. If you are in the Salt Lake City area and you are interested in being involved with Starting Strength gyms, this is the guy. This is a John Hahn level, Luke Schroeder level guy. We've got, that's the thing about this organization. I can keep naming the list of people that kick ass.
There's a lot of really good people.
A lot of really good people, but only a few that have a entrepreneurial background, a management background, and a leadership background. And the benefit of working with a guy like that is something we spoke about over lunch as well, is we were talking about parenthood. And one thing you mentioned to me that I really like, and I love learning from guys like you, is you're going to measure the success of your children based on how well they treat other people. And in your faith, that's how you believe people will be judged.
Right.
That's beautiful. It's kind of as simple as that.
Yeah.
What else is there really? It's like, how well do you treat other people?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that if you are in Salt Lake and you are interested in this and you can work with a guy that thinks like that, you can be assured that your job is going to be pretty good, especially if it's within the system that we've established that you've heard a bunch about already. So, yeah, James is hiring.
Yeah.
What else are you up to, man? Where are you at in the process?
So we're looking for space. So we've started that process, which can be 2 months or 6 months.
Could be longer.
Right now it's hard.
Andrew Lewis is watching this. He's like, it took me 14, man.
Did it take him 14
It took him
months?
14, yeah.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah. It's just a weird
I'm not
market.
looking to set a record for that.
It's just a weird market.
It is.
I mean, there has been massive upheaval in the supply and demand of commercial and residential real estate because of all of the draconian policies that were passed and all of the mobility of the populations all across the country. So the markets are just in absolute disarray, compounded with being in more debt than they've ever been in by a long shot,
right.
Compounded with interest rates going through the roof, compounded with consolidation, private equity, and a bunch of small businesses going under. Like, that's a very complicated business environment. So it's a weird time to be starting a new company, especially with like looming recession and stuff. But you know, this is a statement, but take it as a question. So my philosophy is, I don't care what doom and gloom is around the corner. Today is today. I'm going to do the best thing that I can do today. That's within my sphere of control in pursuit of my goals. And I'm never going to throw away my goals or throw away my plans because it looks like negative things are happening. And I want to preempt those negative things by not pursuing the positive thing that I'm after. Because if I thought like that, the most prudent thing to have done during COVID would have just been to shut down the whole business, right? I mean,
right.
And a lot of our competitors filed for bankruptcy. Gold's Gym filed Chapter 11. They closed all their corporate stores. 24 Hour Fitness also filed Chapter 11. You can just go down the list. So that's my take on how you, and I think entrepreneurs have to be almost like foolishly optimistic. Because otherwise, if you look at the statistics of the math on this stuff, like you and I are probably considered foolish people. It's only not foolish when it works.
Right. Yeah. You're an idiot or you're brilliant.
Exactly.
There's no in between.
Right. So I'm just curious what your take is, because respect for the way you operate and respect for everything you've done, but also respect for being willing to take the plunge in a time of significant upheaval and uncertainty.
Yeah, you could look at it like, okay, we have a higher end product within fitness. So is the current, and I mean, they've changed the numbers. We're in a recession. They changed the numbers so they can say we're not. We are.
Isn't that great?
And it's, yeah.
I used to work for a company that did that, by the way.
My background is economics. That's what I studied in school.
Oh, cool. So you were going to be an economist?
Yes.
So you were on your path. You were on a path to being.
My bachelor's is in managerial economics.
Okay. So you were on the path to being completely useless to society.
Hey, now,
as a goddamn predictor of nonsense. But hopefully you took the analysis education, and the economic education, and then applied that to something useful.
Right. The statistical is great, having that background in statistics. Yeah. They say, typically economists say, on the one hand, this could happen on the other one. I forgot which president it was who said, give me a one-handed economist. So, yeah. But, so they've changed the definition so that they can say we're not in a recession, but we are. But I'm kind of a contrarian. I think the best time to move is when other people aren't. And it's very easy to move when the tide is moving you. Mm-hmm. But I think opportunities come when you move against the tide. Mm. And so to me, it's opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think it's opportunity in terms of finding good people who are also looking to who I've met a couple who are interested in getting into training and teaching and coaching in an environment where they can have an impact and to get out of the rat race that is a lot of jobs now. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll see people driven to this, and health is always an issue. Health is always on all of our minds. Mm-hmm. I don't care how old you are. And so we're seeing more and more studies come out that are proving what Rip has been saying for years about what strength training does for the body, not just the muscles, not just the bones, not just the connective tissue, but also for the cardiovascular system, for
metabolic system.
The metabolic system, the mental and emotional strength. So it changes your life. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, people understanding that, and more people looking for ways to apply it in their lives and to make that improvement. And so there's no better time than the present to move on things that are good.
Hell yeah.
That are going to have a positive impact on the people who want to change.
I learned that lesson in 2008 when I was a fool in the feeding frenzy, buying a house at the top of the market, thinking it's going to keep going up forever. And then lost $100,000 in the process, when my buddies that are older and wiser than me and have been in business for longer are actually benefiting from all of the craziness of the situation. So
you make fun of economists, but I bought low, sold high, bought low, sold high.
However, you are not an economist.
Touche.
Economists are talking heads on CNBC. Yes. They don't actually build things. You are a builder, my friend. Speaking of being a builder, what's your vision? Where do you want to go with this thing? So you've bought one gym in Salt Lake,
right? Yeah. My hope is to expand it to four gyms in Utah. You mentioned my connections with Japan. I would love to take it there as well.
That would be cool.
Once we build it out.
I'm glad we had this conversation. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That would be cool because like I told you, getting ready for this podcast, my wife and I want to, once we have our daughter, at some point, take her to Japan to live for a little while down the road. Maybe I'll be your Japan guy, man.
There you go.
I have to learn the language.
I think we'll see. It's growing, obviously, right? Our gyms are growing despite COVID and everything that happened to kind of slow things down. There's still growth, and I see this as being extremely important to people who understand it.
Yep.
And they're going to see the impact it has on life. I mean, we see it in the communities where we've had gyms for a little while, and people's lives changing, and they become evangelists for. And people are asking, what have you done? What's happened to you? You and I came from kind of separate. You came from a skinny guy to a big guy. I was fat and came down.
But we both got stronger.
We both got stronger, and we're both in much better health because of it.
Yep.
And so it works for anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody and everybody. And so.
Hell yeah. So I just looked at the clock. Somehow we blew by an hour already.
Oh, wow.
Is there anything you want to talk about that I haven't mentioned?
No, I just kind of my philosophy in doing this, and what I hope that people will bring when they come to the gym is owning the change. I think sometimes we talk about we don't like change. And most people, we don't like change, right? We want things, if we're comfortable, we want things to not change. Every day things change. Tomorrow's coming no matter what. But for me, it's embracing and owning the change as opposed to letting the change happen. And I think starting strength is a way that you control the change. You don't just let change happen to you, but you create the positive change.
I follow you.
It's not your life. It's going to have change.
Sure.
And you can determine a lot of it, whether it's a positive or negative. And grabbing and holding on and controlling the change means a much more fulfilling and enjoyable life, in my opinion.
So you do have quite a robust philosophy of life. And I like where your head's at with this stuff. So we're going to do a bonus question here and go a little long. Where do you draw the line? How do you determine which things to grab a hold of and control versus which things to let go of?
That's a great question.
And the reason I ask you this is because my life has been predicated upon grabbing onto everything and trying to control everything. And in a lot of ways, that works great when it comes to my health and fitness, when it comes to my business, with a caveat. I showed the plan for starting strength gyms on this podcast, the presentation that I built before this company existed, and we executed on that plan to a T.
Right.
So complete control over that. But the caveat with the company is people are involved. Don't be the government. Don't try to control people.
Right.
As soon as you try to control people, you will have the opposite effect of what you think you wanted to have.
Right.
So I mean, for me, I think it comes down to sphere of influence. Like within your sphere of influence, for things not related to other people's behavior, which technically is outside of your sphere of influence,
Right.
control the things that are important.
Right.
And prioritize, and don't make yourself neurotic and nuts. I'm just curious because I love that point of view.
Yeah.
Take control of the stuff that's important. And hey, tomorrow your health will be slightly different than it is today.
Right.
If you can control which direction that's headed, you ought to. That's essentially what you're saying.
Exactly.
So can you expand upon that for me? Is there a broader principle we can apply to life?
Yeah. Well, so you have the uncontrollable. I can't control the weather.
Right.
So I don't let the weather dictate my mood or what I mean, it may prevent me from doing things that I had planned on doing. But that's change I don't control. So I don't really try to worry about that much. And I don't let that dictate my mood or what I'm doing. So my dad told me a story growing up. So there's this guy in New York, guy that's selling newspapers. And he's just a big a-hole to everybody. It's kind of like in Seinfeld, the soup Nazi. Right? just, and every day this guy comes by and says, "Have a great day," and is always nice to him. And this other gentleman who's watching this says, "Why are you so nice to him when he's such an a-hole?" And he says, "Because I'm not going to let him control my mood. I'm not going to let him dictate what I do." And so the things that are out of my control, I try not to worry about.
Yep.
They'll impact me, but But if I worry about them, I can't do anything about it.
Sure.
So the change that you embrace is, I know I'm getting older tomorrow than I am today.
Yep.
How I can't control my age, but I can control a lot of the aspects of my health. I can control the things that I learn. I can control attaining more knowledge. And those things ultimately, and I can control how I treat my family or how I dedicate myself to my family. And if I'm doing those things, a lot of the other stuff falls into place. And so it's a matter of looking at what are my priorities and how do I apply what I have control over those priorities first.
Yep.
And then as it goes down the line, there are things that just don't matter that much.
Sure.
So
love it. I love it. And the other tricky thing about this newspaper guy in that metaphor is the newspaper guy may not be trying to be a dick.
Right.
You might just be perceiving his behavior as such.
Yeah.
And so if you misinterpret it and then it changes your mood, well, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're pissed off all day for no reason because that was never the intention.
Sure. Or maybe he is in a bad mood and he's perpetually in a bad mood.
Right.
So what's the best thing to do with someone that's suffering? Make your encounter pleasant or make your encounter worse.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of ways you can look at this stuff from. And this is more of the lunch conversation than the podcast conversation, but I find it really insightful anyways.
Yeah. I think we have more control than we it's easy to say out of my control, right? But how we act is in our control.
Yep.
How we respond is in our control.
Yes.
And too many times I think we find ourselves, and society is kind of moving in this direction that if I got an F, my mom went to me about the F. She didn't go to the teacher. Nowadays they go to the teacher if their kid gets an F, and it's a lack of ownership, I think.
Well, the F is just a representation of the patriarchy in a system of oppression. So it is the teacher's fault.
There you go. I stand corrected.
How dare you?
How dare my mother take it out on me?
Oh shit. What other words of wisdom do you have for us, man? Because you've put a lot of thought into this. You've been a bishop in your church, and you've got a great family. Let's leave on a pearl of wisdom, if you don't mind. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have many pearls. I just
or we could just edit this whole part out.
I think generally life can be joyful if we try to find the joy or if we make effort to the joy. I really love the easy doesn't work. That resonated with me with Starting Strength, because everything in my life that I've gained from has been hard. But those are the best times. I know we're short on time here, but so going to school,
we can go as long as we want. I'm just worried about these guys losing interest. So keep going.
So, I have 5 brothers. Great mom and dad loved us. Dad worked hard, but we didn't have a lot. We, as a family, would clean banks at night. And that was a lot of my younger brothers, actually. I owe them a lot because they, after school, after practice, they go with the family to clean banks to get extra money for the family. So,
wow.
Going to school, I had to pay my own way through school. So I went up and worked on fishing in Alaska. And it was hard.
Sounds dangerous.
It was hard. But I wouldn't change it. If I had it to go over again, I would do it again. The difficulty in that gave me, it's kind of like the confidence that you get from weight training. Going through that, it's like I can do hard things.
Yep.
It gave me confidence.
Yep.
And while it wasn't enjoyable while I was going through it, afterwards looking at it and look what it did for me was amazing. So I think we don't avoid hard things. Because easy doesn't work.
Right.
And hard things generally bring greater joy. So.
Man, I keep wanting to wrap this up. We'll just forget about the time. We'll just talk until we get bored. This fatherhood topic's been on my mind quite a bit, obviously. What is your take on the rite of passage in society? And you can look at this from 2 angles: a religious angle or a cultural angle, because you're involved with both. What you've just described, from as far as I'm concerned, is a rite of passage. You did something difficult to achieve a goal, to aid in your maturity as a man. I've had a few of those things in my life. One was the most important one for me was signing up for a fight. You want to face your fears?
Yeah, that's scary.
You want to face your fears? Yeah. Sign on the dotted line that on this date, you're going to stand across another man in the ring that's the same weight as you, has had just as much time to prepare as you. The exact same rules apply, and put it out on the line in front of all your friends and family, and see what you can do. And see if you can. Your legs are going numb from the adrenaline before you even walk into the ring. Can you keep your shit together, stay focused, and get the job done? Right. That was such a monumentally powerful moment in my life. Nothing's scary after that.
Yeah.
I was ready to die in that ring.
Right.
Nothing is scary after that. Not nothing, but much fewer things. So it occurs to me that it'd be great to have a rite of passage for my children. But at the same time, I just explained that I'm kind of against controlling people, although I believe that with children, it's required that you control them until they're competent enough for you to relinquish control and they can make their own decisions.
Right.
What's been what's your take on the whole rite of passage concept, and kind of like, let's just say for Lily, who's coming in January, before you're 16 years old, you need to sign up for a fight, either jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai.
I think it's important for us to put our children in uncomfortable situations, because when we're not around and when they go into the real world, they're going to be in uncomfortable situations. And are they prepared to deal with that? So as hard as it is, and I'm sure you're similar to me, I want to give my kids the things that I didn't have.
Yep.
And sometimes it's a service, sometimes it's a disservice. And we've traveled a lot. We never traveled growing up. Our travel was driving from California to my mom's farm in Idaho. All piled up in a van, no seat belts, just laying out. That was our travel. If we got McDonald's when we traveled, that was a huge treat. But I say that not with feeling very good about it. I'm not trying to present myself as a martyr by any stretch. Those experiences were good for me. And I think. I was talking with my wife about this not too long ago that, because my youngest is 19, almost 20. So they're growing up. Our ability to influence, as you were talking about, is kind of gone, other than the things that we've already taught them. But, did we provide too much? Did we not make things hard enough on them?
If you're asking yourself those questions, you've won as far as I'm concerned, but you're never going to be satisfied. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Just love them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
But there is a necessity that I think generally society is taken away from putting kids in uncomfortable positions, and then they can't cope with uncomfortable.
Yep.
And they have to be able to be happy in life. Not that they have to go on and become president of the United States or accomplish something great, but just to be happy in life, you have to be uncomfortable with hard things.
Yep.
Because that's where you have to go through hard things to find the good.
Yep.
And they'll never find the good if they can't get through hard things.
Or if they're coddled or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if mom and dad always do everything for me, then you get there. So I do think it's important to, by a certain age, it's like, for example, my boys had to become Eagle Scouts before they could drive.
So you do have some standards and mandates.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
To get them to have experiences that we know are going to be in their benefit that they don't want to do.
And structured as an incentive, so there's
Correct.
something in it for them
So,
at the end of it. Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
I think those things are important. Some people may say that it's archaic, but
yeah, they're not on the podcast. It's fine.
there you go.
Well, I believe that with all important things in life, you're better off if you find someone with experience to guide you. It's kind of what this whole business is predicated upon.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So please be my parenthood coach. I'll check in with you here and there and keep me honest, man.
I'll give you where
I'm not going to pay you though.
Yeah, I'll give you where I succeeded and where I failed, and then you can take it from there.
Yeah, and I'm getting some comments from the community too. Marty Fox, who's active on the board, just messaged me with some just beautiful stories about his kids and how he feels about the task of being a father. And
there's nothing better. There is, they have a saying in Japan that you love the child so much you'll stick them in your eye.
Interesting.
And it's a very weird saying, but you understand it when you'll have a child, that you would do anything for the welfare of that child.
I can already feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel my risk profile changing as I navigate my day and rethinking what actions I would or wouldn't take based on having a baby in tow.
And it goes beyond that. It goes to even regardless of what your ethical moral code is, you'll rethink, would I want my daughter seeing me do this? Would I want my son seeing me do this? Is this what it helped me a lot saying, what decision would I want my son to make in this situation? What decision would I want my daughter to make in this situation?
Or how would I want them to see me?
And how would I want them to see me in this situation?
That was Marty's advice, by the way. Thanks for the advice for reinforcing it, Marty.
Very smart, Marty.
I've heard it a bunch. It's basically, it doesn't matter what you say. It just depends on how you behave.
Oh,
how do you treat your wife? How do you treat your kids? How do you treat your peers?
Yeah.
That is what your kids will learn.
Yeah.
You can talk about concepts till you're blue in the face, but they're your apprentices and you're setting the example.
They're looking, yeah. And if your words match your deeds, you have a much better influence.
Hell yeah.
So if you keep those aligned, I tried to, and none of us do it perfectly.
Yeah.
We have what we know is right, what we think is right, but then we have influence that will drift degrees, hopefully not many degrees, but left or right from there. And we're always kind of correcting and getting back,
and hopefully not wild shifts from one to the other. Yeah. That's destabilizing.
But that brings to children comfort and confidence. Like, I know this is what my dad says, and this is what my dad does.
Nice.
I trust my dad. I know then when you say something that they haven't seen yet, they trust you.
Sure.
And so it's building up in them someone to look up to, and a course to follow. And of course they're going to blaze their own trail, but they've got a foundation now that they can go in any direction because they've got a solid foundation of truth, someone I can rely on, because the world doesn't provide that like it used to. We used to be able to look up to our teachers, to our community leaders, to our Boy Scout leaders. We don't have the same number of people that we can trust for our children to emulate.
Right.
And so that role is increasingly on parents.
Yep. And one of the many reasons why that even though I don't believe in the religious definition of a God, I'm actually considering joining a church for that exact reason.
Yeah.
But that is a whole nother tangent. So James Johnson. James Johnson.
We got a little off topic there.
Off topic, but it's all related, man. This is all about living a good life, being a good person, putting in the hard work to achieve something better. And you know, when you can make the most out of your own existence, you can hope to be a good person and be a good influence. If that works out, you can hope to have a good influence and a good impact on your family. If that works out, you can hope that scales to your community. And then if enough people are doing that, it scales beyond that. And then you've got a better world that's safer and more just and more reasonable and more supportive of the future generations and their potential accomplishments to come. So,
absolutely. 100%.
So that's the way I look at it. James, awesome conversation, man. That was fun.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to contact James, it's slc.ssgyms.com. So if you're in Salt Lake City, you can jump on his early interest list and he'll contact you with updates on the gym. You don't strike me as a TikToker. Are you on social media? Can people get in touch with you?
I'm not big on social media.
Right.
It's something I have to change.
Yeah. Well, you'll have a social media for the gym.
Yeah. I'll do that. My wife does a lot of social media stuff. She's on it constantly. I haven't really bought in, but I will. I'll get better as it relates to starting strength.
All right. Well, write James a letter, okay? No, contact him.
Or email jjohnson@startingstrengthgyms.com.
jjohnson@ssgyms.com if you want to save a few character strokes.
There you go. Yeah.
But hey, thanks, man. Thanks for coming all the way down.
Appreciate
I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. It was fun.
See you guys.